Thank you. Really quickly, I'd like to add that I wanted to especially thank Dr. Sal for his help in questions for the candidates. They were very insightful, and thank you. I wanted to thank Joe Voss, teacher at Danbury High School, who went out of his way to nag the other teachers to attend this event. And I wanted to thank NEA Danbury for inviting Citywide PTO to come be with them in this event. So thank you, that's it.
And we would like to thank you guys for doing it. All right, seriously. It's so pleasant in here. All right. And Mr. Levy, you're not speaking. You just wrote your name down to impress us.
Just to say you
I'll say hello anyway.
All right. The consent calendar, please.
That the Board of Education approves the items on the consent calendar, exhibits 15 through 19 through 15 through 21 as recommended.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions?
Correction on item exhibit 15 to 19. My name was not added to the list of people that were present, and I would like for my name to be added to that list. And a corrected page given to us at our next meeting.
Thank you. Did you get that, Jody? Okay, thank you. Are there any employee representatives here to speak? But we do have student representatives. I'm sorry, you know what, guess what? I need a motion to correct it.
Yeah, we had it first and second, just so we need.
Thank you. All right, there was a motion. Who made the motion to change it?
To change it? Do you need a motion?
To add to it?
No.
No?
Just ask for a corrected notice of the next
Right,
meeting.
I'm sorry.
It was moved, but it wasn't second.
Was it seconded?
Yeah,
Bob seconded. Bob seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, anybody else, anything else? Ready? We're covered, yes, I agree.
Okay.
All right. Now, we have as a student representative. Would you like to speak and introduce yourself, please? I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Evan Fernandez, and I go to the Alternative Center for Excellence. Saturday, December 20th, students participated in our Breakfast for Santa event. They conducted community service, assisting customers with serving breakfast, taking pictures with Santa, decorating the school for the event, and through all this hard work, we raised over $700 for our student activity fund. Students at ACE were pleased to hold the guest presenter, Miss Terry Small, to come to ACE on Friday, December 19th to talk about opportunities available after school in the area of vocals, dance, and drama. Miss Small, who has much experience in this area, is willing to come after school to offer these opportunities to ACE students at no cost. Students at ACE will be participating in the annual STARS event again this spring, where students from alternative schools around Connecticut will meet to showcase talents and present to others on a variety of topics. Lastly, the students enrolled in the senior seminar class will be completing their applications this Wednesday to Naugatuck Valley Community College. Naugatuck Valley will also host an on-site acceptance day scheduled for early February.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. It's really hard to speak and it's really hard to hear. I'm getting older, so if you just slow it just down a little bit, and I could repeat what you just said about the last topic that you talked about. The stuff that happened in December, I sort of understood. I didn't understand what just took place, and I'm sorry I didn't stop you before this. But could you just try?
That's all right. Students enrolled in the senior seminar class will be completing their applications this Wednesday to Naugatuck Valley Community College. Naugatuck Valley will also host an on-site acceptance day scheduled for early February.
Okay, I think I got it now.
Thank
you very much. Thank you. And your name again is?
Evan Fernandez.
Okay, Edward. Nice meeting you. For the presentation, Ms. Gregory's coming, I believe, probably to our next meeting. But due to the weather, she won't be here tonight. And if we're going to hold our action items in advance, and we're right ahead to our discussion on the budget, if that's all right with you, Joe? If you guys, you gentlemen, not you guys, you gentlemen would like to sit at the table where there's a microphone so you can ask questions that are relevant, do they have a handout or something?
Yeah, they already have
The
the,
gentleman from the county council,
yeah, they have,
city council.
yeah, they have a copy of the budget.
This will be Mr. Wetmore and Mr.
We got Wendler
David.
and John Pierrot.
Oh, I see, I didn't see John, right. You don't let him sit with you?
Yeah.
Everyone's been a bit, Ms. Stanley and Mr. Fox were at the presentation the other night that the finance committee had.
Second last one's west side. You said it. You kept the word exploration county. Oh, we did. Yes, thank you. Which way?
Second to last.
Oh, second to last. Oh, on the back? Oh, you're right, yep.
See when I came.
Yep.
No big.
West side.
I got it.
It's right here. No, you can go to.
This will work from my desk.
Thank you, very much.
Need help with that?
No, I think I got it.
Oh my God, we made food.
Oh, geez, this is, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
This is-
I'm sorry, I didn't know you could sit.
Yeah,
It's all right, don't worry.
I'll make up then.
thank you.
Make it up as you go.
Okay. Where's my stuff here? Okay, everybody, good evening. First, thanks everyone for coming. I thank the members of the council for coming, and obviously the finance committee met last week already to kind of begin the process through the Danbury Public Schools budget. We're going to present tonight the Danbury Public Schools budget for 15-16 fiscal year. There we go. One day,
Exactly.
it is really high tech. One day we'll get a projector.
When in doubt, just push the table.
There you go. There you go. The Danbury mission, our mission is developing all children the knowledge and skills and attitudes and values which will enable them to live a productive and self-fulfilling life and engage in responsible citizenship in a global society. Back in, I believe, 2013, the board launched into a district coherence plan with Jonathan Constant, basically to align our student goals, our adult goals, and our organizational goals together in a common mission and plan. And when we did that review with both the board, the administration, and the cabinet, we came back with, in a sense, two main drivers or goals and missions for the school district. Students throughout the district will demonstrate competencies in constructing and engaging in viable arguments based on evidence and criteria to reassuring of others. Students throughout the district. No. Wow, we really. Okay. Students throughout the district will demonstrate competencies in making sense of problems and preserving and solving them. The alignment of the board's goals, we have The board's coherence plan goals align with the superintendent's goals, deputy superintendents, cabinets, principals, and so on through the district, in a sense, a common alignment. Belief statement of the board and the administration: children are our first priority. Education decisions and actions should be based on best practices in the field of education. Partnerships between parents, educators, students, and the community is important for students to succeed. All children can learn. High expectations and accountability for all. Educators should provide varying experiences and instruction opportunities to meet students' individual needs. Schools should provide safe and productive learning environments based upon mutual respect, trust, and cooperation. Our budget development: maintain core levels of education for all students, meet all legal and contractual requirements, evaluate open positions to increase fiscal efficiency, and design resources for the new 7th grade global studies at Westside Middle School. Aggressively pursue cost containment and savings measures in health insurance, workers' comp, energy efficiency, and transportation. Continue to refine our building-based budget format. Continue to aggressively pursue grants that can be used to provide additional support to students. Our state technology grant, which the board received last year. Our school security grant, which we received both awards for, I believe, 13 of our buildings. And our ECS, or Alliance grant, which you'll hear later in the presentation, which is $6.6 million. Key budget elements: enrollment, the impact of the additions, which is now the 7th grade at Westside Middle School. That is 100 students that are going into that program next year. Alliance and ECS funding from the state of Connecticut. The overview of our budget, 15-16, and addressing ongoing needs of our special education students. The board recently completed an enrollment study with Peter Prada, actually within the last month. And if you look at the trend line, this is obviously going back to 1970, our actual enrollment. And you can see the black line represents the state growth overlaid, because Peter does many school districts, so you can actually review quite a few different locations. And you can see the trend line on where the state enrollment is and where Danbury's enrollment is. So it's really been interesting on at least our current enrollment and current growth. Going out, Peter did a 10-year enrollment study. Current enrollment right now is 10,924 students, and projected in 2024 at 11,150. The interesting about the enrollment landscape right now, there's not true growth. The growth is at a higher level. In other words, our kindergarten, our 1st grade, 2nd grade are currently 800, and they're staying at those higher levels. So that bubble with the construction projects that we did, you have K-5 growth, and that growth is slowly moving up through the system. And the growth is no clearer represented than the high school. That bubble, in a sense, is working through the line. Current high school enrollment is 2,983, and total will be 3,457. That does include ACE, and there's roughly 100 students there. So you have to assume Danbury High School enrollment will be around 3,300, 3,350. So I mean, the growth is really alarming. And as I kind of say, even if as you go out through years, the enrollment projections do get a little fuzzy. I mean, even if they're half right, the growth is really amazing. We have surrounding districts that really are shrinking and declining. And some of the area of declining enrollment is really alarming. In Danbury, it's not the case. This is a perspective of our current landscape in the district as far as our population. What is on the left-hand side is our English language learners, and that number there represents 2010 numbers. So we were at 18.5%, and right now we're at 22% ELL. Special ed population is similar growth, 10.9 to 12.2. The interesting part in the special ed number particularly, that represents about 185 students. But if you understand the cost of a special ed child, at times they could be 2 and 3 times your net pupil expenditures. So if your per pupil is around $10,000, $11,000, those students could be $20,000 or $30,000 per student. So the impact of them is significant. And obviously your free and reduced lunch as well. I mean, it's significant movement up, unfortunately, in the population rate. 43% in 2010, and now sitting at 55%. Also, with a growing district, as the board knows, we've added many additions in the school district. That's our total district square footage. and we've added, in a sense, roughly 75,000 square feet in the past 2 years. That's with our early childhood center we rent, which is the former Sacred Heart School, obviously the West Side Middle School, and the 3 additions at Park Ave, Shelter Rock, and Stadley. The good news about, at least for this from a board standpoint, because of a lot of the cost containment measures on the energy front, both with the city's help and the board, we really haven't seen a large uptick in energy use because we've since added a whole other building. So there's some good stories in that piece. ECS funding, or what was originally called the Alliance Grant. The original grant that was in the 12-13 budget was a $1.7 million grant that the district had to apply for. That began our all-day kindergarten intervention support, which in a sense is some one-on-one help for some of our slower readers. Sheltered Instructional Observation Protocol, which is SIOP, which works with some of our ELL students. Additional training for administrators on a new teacher evaluation model, and increasing our bilingual teachers to provide additional support for non-English speakers. Year 2 in the Alliance Grant was an additional $2.7 million on top of the 1.7, bringing us to $4.4 million. That was to continue to add the additional schools on for all-day kindergarten, increase our math support at the elementary level, provide full-time social workers at each elementary school, and provide additional administrative support and school climate support at the middle school and high school levels. And also provide a long-term funding stream for Head Start, if the board did allocate those funds from the grant. Year 3, which is the final year, at least the increase in ECS, bringing the grant to a full $6.6 million. We did transition some social workers, kindergarten teachers, and math specialists who were in the operational budget into the ECS funding, and we did add additional teachers and teachers. The grant is $6.6 million. We have a grant process of saying where are your measures and accountability? So we do go through that every year. We'll continue monitoring the pieces that are inside the grant, and the draft is due to the state by April 15th. Going through the budget itself, total salaries and benefits, total salaries are budgeted at $73 million, which represents an increase of $3.3 million. Inside that increase is a $2 million increase in salaries. Additional current budget. Costs. Elementary and ESL teachers representing a 4.0 FTE addition. $487,000, that is new teachers for the West Side Middle School. That is additions for our 7th grade students with approximately 100 kids. We also do have inside our budget what is known as the AAS Magnet School program. Those students, in a sense, come from surrounding towns. We have seen some neighboring towns that have dropped their number of seats. So we do get reimbursement for each child that comes from, in a sense, out of town. So that's $7,500 per student. So we do have to, we offset that and balance those pieces between the operational budget. So we do have to pick up an additional teacher from that grant. Within the grant, within the budget, we have 3 additional teachers for enrollment growth. That's primarily Park Avenue, because obviously there's major additions that have happened there. An early college director, a 2.0 theme coach, or those are also known as instructional coaches. That's at our 6th grade and our magnet school. 1.5 special education teachers at Danbury High School. A 1.0 psychologist at the elementary tier. And a 1.0 nurse between Park Avenue and DHS. And also a 0.6 social worker at East. Within that is also additional, we're known as part-time staff. That represents $2.3 million. Those are substitutes and primarily part-time. It's 69. Employee benefits are budgeted $26 million in the 15-16 year, representing an increase of $1.4 million or 5.98%. Included in that is $212,000 for the Millridge Academies. 4.7 of that amount is our basic insurance renewal, which is about $1 million. Really exists. All of our teachers and administrators in all bargaining units have converted to the HSA plan, including all our exempt staff in 2013. We did partner with the city for self-insurance. We have been reviewing our claims history ongoing and also reviewing. The board conducted an employee audit a couple years ago, and we are still, in a sense, randomly selecting dependents that are on people's plans, and to make sure, in a sense, that who is on your plan belongs on it. Also, workers' compensation. We're working closely with KERMA, our insurance carrier, to provide additional training for staff. Workers' comp has been an ongoing issue for the board. We do have significant increases in that area. In a sense, we have a deductible on our plan of $500,000 for each occurrence. So we have to go out of pocket for any injuries that happen up to $500,000. So we've seen significant increases in those claims. We're trying to monitor those and mitigate some as best we can through additional training, but that's definitely an area of ongoing concern. Service and fees in the budget are $4.9 million for 15-16, which represents an increase of $408,000. The largest increase in our budget are special education tutors. We continue to have additional placements for demanding one-on-one aids. That increase is $355,000. Those are ongoing requirements under the IDEA. We did also increase our physical therapy support services in the current budget year. Utilities and repairs for the budget is $1,062,000, which represents an increase of $61,000. That is due to an increase in our early childhood center rental. That was part of our school readiness program, but because of some challenge inside that grant, we do have to assume a piece of the rent. The other half of that rent is currently in our IDA grant. The board moved our special ed pre-K program is there, and our school readiness program, approximately 8 classrooms at Safe. And also an increase in our refuse account of 3% based on our current contract. Transportation tuition is budgeted $12 million. It represents an increase of $637,000 or 9.9%. Additional buses above we did place in the budget. West Side Academy has a catchment area of a sense that crosses the whole entire city. So when we began on where those students were placed in the lottery, we did find issues with our run times. And also, because of redistricting, we did have some additional challenges in the busing tier. So we did have to add 3 additional buses on top of the 4 we had budgeted in the current year. Special ed transportation is also increasing. Typically, a special education child may ride, may have an hour plus bus ride for, $20,000 or $30,000 per student. So that is an increased cost. We have also seen significant increases in our outplacement students. Currently budgeted increase is $275,000. We've seen a number of DCF placements that have happened and additional student outplacements. Supplies are budgeted $4.9 million for 15-16, which represents a decrease of $218,000 or a negative 4.2%. The district and the city have locked fuel costs for 15-16 at $2.77 a gallon. So we have obviously reduced our bus fuel costs down $63,000, and also our heating oil costs have cut by $41,000. Our prior amount, I believe, was $3.11, so we locked in the current year. We also did reclassify our utility accounts. Based on some feedback we got from the council last year, there were some questions around natural gas and electricity. We currently had them inside what was known as a public utility account. So this year we took gas and electricity account inside for each school. At least the schools that have natural gas, and some schools, obviously, not all our schools are on gas. Also, we opened the West Side Middle School. We had a $200,000 lottery budget in there for the opening of the building. We did drop that number down, so of a cut of $146,000 inside that. Equipment and program improvements are budgeted at $1.4 million for 15-16, which represents an increase of $150,000. That is our elementary technology lease. It'll be a 5-year leasing program. that will be in total of $750,000. The board did embark on a sense, a three-year phased leasing program for technology. The first year we start at the middle school, the second year was the high school, and this will be our final lease, which is, really positive based on the age of our equipment, additional online testing that we have to put our students through. So it's really going to be a large benefit to the school, and a phased and measured approach to getting the technology we need. Inside the equipment account, just so we have 5 current leases. Our Honeywell performance contract, we started in 2008, that ends in 2018. Our copier contract, which we actually just embarked in a 4-year contract. Energy efficient lighting project at Danbury High School, Rogers Park in Broadview. Our current solar lease for Park Avenue, Ellsworth, and our technology lease.
Lastly, the $800 to $899, this is our dues and fees, adult education bilingual, which is budgeted $548,000, representing a 0% increase in the current year. That brings our total budget request to $127,529,485, or 4.89%, which represents $703,000 is the impact of the West Side additional staffing needed to open the 7th grade, and our operational budget of $5.2 million, or 4.31%. Our challenge, Danbury Public Schools must continue to focus on providing a high-quality education for students while maintaining financial responsibility to stakeholders throughout the city.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Because I have one.
Rich, on who's got. Oh, yeah.
Can we turn the lights on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Are there any questions?
I do.
Right off the top of your head.
Joe, the reduction in the library for the for the west side,
Yeah.
is the library there fully functional, or?
Yeah, the library resources are fully stocked. What we did do this year, because there's $200,000 budgeted, you'll see throughout the budget, we reallocated down about $50,000 for all our libraries, and that's really going to provide additional resources, whether they're e-books, online learning opportunities. What we did is we took a per pupil analysis based on $5 a student, so they're enrollment driven. So we tried to be fair and equitable across all our schools. So you'll see like Danbury High School has about $14,000 in their library account now. It was a good opportunity since to bring up all our libraries. West Side is really an incredible facility in what we were able to provide up there. So we thought that was prudent.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead. Finish it up, go ahead.
What's the role of the early college director? Is that what it sounds like? Is it only a part-time position?
It is. It's an early college coordinator is what it's going to be.
The early college program, it's the middle college that we've been working with, Naugatuck. That's where we identify approximately 100 students next year, and in 4 years with the experiences, there's 3 pathways. One through classroom work, through college work, and then through work at various companies. We have 2 companies working with us in town. They are New Oaks, which is a technology software company for finance, and Pitney Bowes working with us. They are going to provide internships, and in fact, we'll have a guaranteed employment at the end. We are working in conjunction with Naugatuck College, and higher ed is funding it because of priority. So Danbury is one of the 2 schools, or 3 possibly if they can fund it, that will be recognized this year to begin it. They require a coordinator to run the program. My argument has been that for 100 students, I believe we needed a director, so they've allowed us to have a part-time. The concept here is building on what we have at the high school. You know, we have a building proposal that you're going to be seeing pretty quick. And in there, there's a freshman school. There'll be a section of the college area as well. So they'll have a school within the school. In 4 years, you'll have 400 students, hopefully, that one AP AP is really what it'll be. We'll be looking after those students, working with colleges, universities, and their curriculum. So, but next year, it'll start with about a 40% release person.
I think it's an exceptional idea. I think it's an exceptional idea. I'm very enthusiastic about it. My only question would be, is that for $65,000, do you think that we could just make it full-time for that salary?
No, that, in fact, that's everything in. That would be salary and then just the benefits in there as well. What it'll be, the way that should work is the next year we'll have, at least the concept, we'll have 200 students. It'll probably increase that time a little bit, and then increase it to 100% in the 4 years as we move up, is the idea.
I don't know, what's an instructional coach?
Those instructional coaches, you may recall a few years ago at the middle school when we had 0 increases, we took quite a bit out of the middle schools. So we started building back from the high school. These are exploration activity people that be working in each of the clusters. It's building off Westside Academy in terms of experience and project-based learning. They have those coaches there present. We're building off of that into the other 2 middle schools. So the youngsters that are not getting into Westside will have similar experiences working through their normal curriculum to do these exploration coaches. So there's 2 of them in there for that purpose.
And I guess my final question, if I may be, probably maybe for Joe, with regards to the increased cost of diesel fuel, is that just because of the number of the additional buses we have? Or was there any realization of savings with the decreasing cost of diesel fuel over the past year?
Correct. The board has to budget by contract 225,000 gallons of diesel fuel. Anything that the bus company uses above that is on the bus company cost. So we are in a sense budgeting the same amount of gallons, just obviously the cost has come down roughly 35 cents or so. So that's and the heating oil is in the same position. The city locked it about, let's say 3 or 4 weeks ago.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Go ahead, Warren.
I saw that you had an additional utility cost of $61,000, I think it was, and I was wondering savings in our utility cost.
That's actually inside. Utilities are flat this year.
Yeah, I thought you
The increase you see there is. The increase inside the 600 accounts is actually related to some supplies and custodial supplies. Utilities are flat this year.
They are.
Yeah, they are. One of the issues with utilities and very difficult is you open your electric bill even last month. The demand charges we're getting hit from CLMP are significant. I mean, I believe the increase is about 12.5%. So we haven't projected those forward yet. So I don't see any additional savings yet. The board has done now about 7 or 8 lighting projects across many schools. We are seeing significant savings through those programs. As well as obviously, we've seen an uptick in natural gas too in the past few years. So those are both. The heating oil side is a significant cut. I mean, the board used to budget about $800,000 or $900,000 for heating oil expenses, and those are now well in half at this point, based on the high school conversions. We do have some data now, which I will get over to the council as far as related to where the trends are on some of the utility usage in some of the schools. Park Avenue has been running 0 meter for quite a few months, actually, which is really cool.
And I know the conversion of some of the boilers to natural gas yielded considerable savings and efficiencies.
Yeah.
Along with the windows in the high school. And one of the other areas of concern was Blum Shapiro, which the legislative body approved to review efficiencies within city government, including the board. I was wondering how that's coming along.
As of right now, we've had, I want to say 4 or 5 meetings with both at the city. Kim Thompson and myself and Dr. Sal sit in that committee. We've been working with the city diligently on the process. There's no additional developments to date as far as where they are on their findings. They're still working through their processes and evaluating all the city procedures. I don't have any.
No, I think they spent a little time here looking at our functions, particularly in the business, see if there can be some collaborations in our purchasing, maintenance. As a in terms of coordination, collaboration. I think today you were there looking at the telephone system.
Yeah, we actually just had a meeting on a blended phone system between the board and the city. That was our meeting today.
So
Well, hopefully in the future, that will yield some savings that we could put into education.
Yeah, I mean, just brief. I mean, the utility side has we've been flat now for 2 or 3 years in the utility account. Because it had the church, like I said, the rates keep going up. So it's becoming kind of this, we're just dodging some of the, we're becoming, it's more cost avoidance mode than actually cost cutting mode, which finance director is disappointing, to be honest.
Thank you.
Joe, can I ask you to do me a favor? I know you've gone over it, and should we just do it one more time?
Sure.
The on the budget, the plus the salaries, okay,
Sure.
the 298.
Yeah, in the 2,000,008, we did a review in a sense on where we stand inside the 2.8 million. Typical, I'll call it board trend for our salary increases around 2.4 million. Let me just grab the page so we're all together here. We have seen, there we go. We have seen some challenges with enrollment. When we did redistricting, we did make some assumptions related to number of classrooms and movement of students between Morris Street and Norwich Primary. We did see, in a sense, it's hard because you go to grab a catchment area of students, you can't necessarily say, I need 10 10th graders and 5 5th graders, and I'm going to consolidate 3 classrooms. You, in a sense, are grabbing streets. So I made those projections, and some of the enrollment growth that came back, particularly at Ellsworth, we weren't able to consolidate some of those classrooms. Ellsworth is a great example. We took about 45 students out of Ellsworth and actually grew last year by 10. So, I mean, they had a net increase of 60, plus or minus. So that presented a challenge on the board. Also, another piece, when we built last year's budget, we split the health insurance and salaries for Westside Middle School. So what happened was, you have money sitting inside health insurance and money for salaries. We budgeted the salaries at a BA Step 1. Not all of those salaries came in at BA Step 1, but also at the same point, health insurance. So you have a balancing in this budget that's happening between the health insurance account and the West Side account. So that also is making, in reality, the salary raise line look a little higher. But in the same point, it's going to sound confusing, but the health insurance line is a little lower because of the offset there. Because we're self-insured, we're not paying, I'm not paying directly on my plan to Cigna. We're only paying based on the claims that happen against the plan. So it's, in a budgeting side, it's a little different on a self-insured plan. So I guess that would be, and also, as I said, in this budget, we do have an additional teacher at the magnet school inside that number, and obviously the ESL and the elementary and the special education teachers.
Thank you. I just wanted.
Yeah, that's it. Good question.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Janelle, sorry.
Joe, just for clarity, one of the large line numbers would be in the 300 series, essentially the special education. We're looking about $4 million.
Right.
In terms of that category of 127 admitted budget. What are some of the challenges that we're facing with the increased costs in special ed? And basically, what do we face with in terms of uncontrollable costs?
We would have a student, for example, who come from another district that has a current active IEP that dictates that child has to have a 1-on-1 aid. By requirement, IEP, that's underneath the IDEA statute. We have to provide that child a 1-on-1 aid until he goes through a PPT, which in reality may or may not keep as 1-on-1. But I mean, once that child arrives, we have, I believe it's a 1-year process until he gets reevaluated. We have to put a 1-on-1 support with that child. Obviously, those 1-on-1 aids also come with a benefit package and everything. So I mean, it's a significant impact to the board. It's been a challenge. The last 3 years I've been here, it's been an ongoing challenge related to the tutors because it is, it's unfortunately something you can't avoid. You're required by law. The outplacement is the same issue.
If you ask about the challenges, Dick, our rates of identification are within the normal range of identification. We've been able to, in a lot of ways, keep our own students here. one, it's good for youngsters to be with their own classmates and not be out of town being bussed in all those programs. But to do that, sometimes what happens is you wind up providing more services on site, which overall, not only is it better for kids, you know, in terms of their social motion, but cognitively we could deal with their academic needs here. However, when students come in from different parts of the state, we do not have an opportunity to provide that service yet. So it takes some time, and that's what Joe was alluding to, the DCF placements. It's an automatic, it's contractual relative to the IEP. Those will continue. You have students moving into Danbury, what we call no nexus, which means in the past, about 4 or 5 years ago, we could charge back tuitions back to their home schools. Right now, they become a resident of Danbury. They remove the nexus part. Danbury is responsible for those educational expenses. We have students going to Waterbury, we have students going to Hartford. We keep putting people all over Milford from here that are placed out, but they come and stay in residence homes in Danbury. So those we have to provide services to. And that's part of our challenge.
If a student comes from outside the city of Danbury with a program that's $100,000 or $150,000 in cost, that's absorbed by the district, is that correct?
Well, let me, it's a good question. Those, in the budget you see now, we anticipate outplacements. When we anticipate an outplacement, it still is a guesstimate in some respects. You're working with IEPs which are going to happen, or these conferences with parents that are going to happen sometime in springtime. But we sort of know what might happen, so we put those out there. What we don't know, who's going to move in. And we have a mobility rate, quite a high mobility rate. If students move in, those are the unanticipated ones. The way it works for them, if they're placed out, let's take that example of $100,000. Student moves in, and from wherever they move into, and they have an IEP with a placement in a certain center. Once they become your resident, our resident, then we have to pay for that. We don't have that in the budget. The law requires us to pay up to 3.5 the amount of money, our tuition. So our expenditures of $11,000, so it's 3.5 times that. Once we get over that, the state is obligated to what we call excess cost, pay back to the town the excess cost. And the town of Danbury does receive money fast at 3.5% for those students. But the obligation to pay for them, it's in the operational budget that we did not anticipate. So we do have to pay for that. Joe's checking on DCF students. That might be reimbursable $1 for $1 after the one-time expense. You want to check the law, but so the city does get reimbursed for that.
Okay. So the city gets it. It doesn't come directly back.
Right, and that is always part of the income. The city looks at it as a balance sheet. All this is coming in. You've asked for this. It goes out. It's that kind of thing. But we are obligated to provide that service. They are obligated, the state to reimburse the city. And it's a wink-wink. They don't reimburse 100% of it. They typically reimburse between 60 and 80% of that amount. The super fund from the state. They don't, reimburse $1 for $1 necessarily.
Another question. For clarity purpose, again, this budget does not include the Alliance grant of the $6.7 million, correct?
No.
No, it does not. That's on an application basis that I think Joe mentioned. There's a draft that's due in April up to the State Department.
And up to this point, it's been sort of iffy if that was going to continue or not continue, that particular grant. Do you have a more current status as to where it stands on a year-by-year basis, or
I think
continuity for 5 years?
I think my belief is that the governor, being an ex-mayor, realizes how the government works in terms of their structure and the convention grant. And he is, I don't believe they will put those resources away from the towns, the 30 towns that are receiving that needs because grant right now. The use change in terms of how it may be applied to the money that we need. city. According to the last conversation we've had with the governor, Friday actually, but that didn't work out. Intentions was to continue the grant. The grant is actually possible beyond if they decide to use it as an alliance grant, but we don't know that yet.
Thank you.
Don't go away, Dr. Pascarella. Would you explain SIOP? I mean, I know it's shelter destruction observation protocol. Would you explain what the monies that go into that?
Our highest population of students that are growing happen to be ELO students, and we couldn't provide all of the services to all of the students that are requiring it. When the youngsters identified in the school, then we can get some focus services. But our population, I mentioned to the board, 42% of our population are Hispanic. 38% of our population are non-Hispanic. And 20% of the 38% is a language other than English is spoken in the home. Which means our kids are integrated in our mainstream programs if you go to the schools. Teachers still have to differentiate the work that they do. They need to look at their lesson plans, and they need to think through how to organize the learning so these students can interact with the learning and are able to move academically through the system. The SIOP training actually is they're trained coaches that work with teachers to change their behavior and their planning so that they can effectuate all of the students. So our 8 or 9 or 6 coaches that we have, primarily at middle and high school, work with the teachers in terms of how they do their lesson plans. They do demonstration lessons, and in essence, it's able to work with our changing population. It seems to be, from the research, the most effective way of trying to meet the needs of those students linguistically while they're learning the content as well.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Breaking protocol, anybody in the audience have a question other than the comment of the City Council? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
The budget's due to the mayor.
Yeah, just board process. The next meeting will have to be for adoption, to be on the mayor's desk for, I believe it's due February 16th with holiday.
Okay, so anybody that has questions, they come to Joe so that they're all answered before we come in. So we're all
I believe our next meeting is the 11th of February.
The 11th of February, yeah. And that will vote then. And gentlemen, that goes for anyone on your positions also that would like to ask questions. Joe has some telephone number you can call him. And I have his phone number, so just call me. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Everybody's excused if you,
Appreciate it.
everybody goes to work. The rest of you have to stay. Okay. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. We're just touching base that the whole finance committee will come together and present the budget as if you have done that.
Yeah.
That would be next, right?
Our action item for.
Yeah, make an action item next time. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Sal.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Nice job.
Yes.
Really nice job.
Both of you, yes.
Excuse me, Joe and his help.
That's it.
Who shall remain nameless,
Nice
obviously.
job.
There you go. I know her name's Ann, I know what everybody else says. All right.
Melanie?
Can you call me Elio too? We'll just make it.
Elio,
Yeah,
Melanie?
just, you know.
Great. That's good.
No, we
Yeah.
won't.
Oh, you better.
Okay. All right.
I think it's good.
Action item, Kathy, I'm sorry.
That the Board of Education accept the December 2014 operating results analysis of the general fund in accordance with 15-22.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry. Just briefly, just one thing on this. I want to draw the board's attention to the part of the budget. I believe the 500 lines of the special ed tuition is located. Bring up my sheets.
As the board knows, I talked about the last meeting, the tuition lines are an ongoing area of concern that we see right now. We are trending under on our public side of the tuition, but the privates is over by over $500,000. This is an ongoing area I'm going to monitor. The tutors as well are over by $100,000. It is my belief that some of the DCF placements may change. They're typically more short-term in nature, but we have to essentially encumber them for the year. We're definitely going to keep a close eye on that section of the budget. It's just it's an area of concern. I just want to make sure the board's aware. Dr. Sal and I are monitoring pretty closely with Debbie Peterson. So that's, I try to point out the good things, but that's just.
Thank you. Anything else you want to bring to our
Just one second, so I can grab my. Get the budget thing open. I have too many things open here. Yeah, special ed tuition is $574,000 over. Transportation is similar story in special ed, over by about $100,000. So those again, just two areas that we definitely watch and monitor closely. Other than that, nothing else that presents. Health insurance trend is looking pretty good on the self-insurance side. No issues there. We've had some pretty good claim months, so I don't see anything there. Workers' comp is continuing to be high. We did actually, not in this number yet, we did have a significant uptick in December, which is not in that number. More good.
Alrighty. Okay, does anyone else have questions, Joe, since you just answered all of ours? Okay. Seeing none, I'll try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Questions, abstentions? Questions, abstentions, thank you. Next.
That the Board of Education accept the December 2014 operating results analysis of grants and projects in accordance with 15-23.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. McCreven? Joe, you have anything to say? Or are we fine?
Grants are good. All are approved. Title I grant is in. All's good. Grant.
Grants are definitely good.
Do we have any new grants in the
Grant on the horizon came down from the state. That's due February 13th. I have an application pending for that. Continue to work our Medicaid funding. That's one of the brighter spots coming through slowly. We are seeing some uptick. We did take all the claim processing online. Beyond that, there's IDA grant. Haven't seen an increase there. The title grants, as you know, in a sense, we can't really. We're required to not supplement, not supplant inside those grants, so no change there. Not in our magnet school grant, as I did allude to the board, in the next year's budget, we are seeing some offsets between our out-of-town students versus our in-town. There's a $4,500 difference between a Danbury child and out-of-town student. So we're going to have to kind of rebalance in some of those.
Kathy, those are the state grants. We've been out working with a few banks in town, some work with different technology organizations, looking at their foundations. Carlin has made a lot of contacts, and we've had a few presentations that we're working on. The early college program in town to keep these trained youngsters. There's an interest to help us in that area, so we're trying to cobble together a few companies that would underwrite it for us. So even the coordinator and the rest could be underwritten. And so we have that going on. Nellie Mae Foundation is interested in the work that we're doing. As soon as we get ready, they just gave us $100,000 for the work to continue the coherence work that we're doing. We're doing another presentation at the state level. They're further for sustainability. That's what we're really looking to do. But these are the grants that are pretty standard based that come in regularly into our budgets.
Yeah, the only grant out there now that's going to be somewhat challenging is the current security grant, because there's a matching contribution inside that grant. So I've got to work with the city. There's about $100,000 we have to put up to, in a sense, access the rest of that funding. Which is interesting because the grant window ends in June, so that's a conversation I have to have with them for everybody.
you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions or objections? Good to go. Alrighty, Kathy C.
That the Board of Education approve the agreement with the Chippewa Agri-Science STEM Academy beginning in the fall of 2018 in accordance with 15-24.
Second.
Seconded by Bob Taversack. Dr. Sal.
We currently participate in the Agri Center, but at another site. That site is not able to take the number of applicants. I think we have 14 students going to that site currently. This would permit other students to get in. It's probably equal distance from what I understand if they go there. It happens to have room, have the planning room that your ex-district is.
Yeah,
they have a lot of room there, and if they can open it up there and they approve it, our kids can kind of symbiotic relationship.
We do pay about $8,000 for retransport for that bus. We've always run a bus up there. We're required by state law.
So how many additional students would this?
It's hard to say because it'll go through a lottery system. You might wind up with a similar impact. I mean, Chippewa is not a large campus, so I think it's going to be about the same size as not a lot. You probably all depends. Our team will stay. There's talk about transitioning them between Nottawa and Chippewa, or in a sense busing them in between the two schools. They're looking at a bunch of avenues, because one thing I was concerned about, and Dr. Sal and I were talking about, is I didn't want to run two buses, one to Nottawa and one to Chippewa, because in reality it's 18 and 18. But they're actually looking at the idea of a satellite bus between the two of them. Each school is maybe about 10 miles apart or so. They're not that far.
So the number of students in both would be?
Nottawa will fall away.
Oh, I
We won't keep students there. That, in a sense, will be grandfathered who's ever up there. The ongoing debate really is going to be what happens to the kids that are grandfathered up there and who buses them.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say that
Okay.
it's just nice to see more opportunities for students. I know remember teaching it. I wish we would get more students stay in maybe Abbott and wanted to go, and they always had a supporter that they got in. And when I was teaching, there were always some students in Danbury that, wanted that vocational experience. So I think it's an excellent thing.
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
We are meeting with Dr. Torres currently. She is the superintendent of schools for the vocational schools. Because of the location in town, we are trying to enter into an agreement with her and the principal up at our hats so that our youngsters can have a different exposure. So hopefully something will come about, because they only accept, there's 420 students in that school. And the technology update is just tremendous. So we're trying to work with them.
Okay, hopefully we'll come to that.
Hopefully something happens.
Ready? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions or objections? Seeing none, passes. And I'm signing for you. Dr. Sal?
Yes. On item 7 here, it's kind of perfunctory. The NEAS visitation, you have to update your material, and that's what that is. There's a site visit somewhere, I think 2018 or thereabouts in preparation, but there are a number of things you have to go through as before the visit, and that's just a self-study report that goes to them. They meet in the spring, and then they read it and send something back to us. Cause meeting with the governor, I mentioned before, was to take place tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. A number of things happen in the state, and a lot of meetings have been canceled, and that's one of them. So we're hoping to see the governor sometime first part of March to come to the cause It's Connecticut Association of Urban Superintendents. The Ninja and myself co-chair for the state, so hopefully we'll have one there. And on the agenda is much of what we talked about today, the Alliance Grant, and what's his view for that. We're hoping by then they'll have a new commissioner. The commissioner application is to end February 4th. They believe they'll have someone named by the first part of March. We'll see what happens, but that's the timeline right now. The Reform Bilingual Education Program, I put that in here. When you get some Connecticut to start to do with these young we've talked about graduating fund. Just take a huge ridiculous all they talk about is learning should be the constant, right? And time not the constant, the variable that flies in the ointment with that. So we're trying to get them to change. We're trying to get them to look at what Florida and some of the other states are doing about testing, is to allow more months for the youngster to be in the States. You know, if anybody takes a math test, I know they say they can take it, but if you try to read through there and look at the conventions and try to figure out what the problem is asking, even if you know the arithmetic behind it, the algorithm, you're going to have a problem. It's just really unfair. And if you want to do it, then give it to them in their own language and see if that. And that's fine for a group of students. We have students here in Danbury, we've talked about, that haven't even been in school. Psychs we call them. And those students there need specialized work. And the state funding is a year behind. We're trying to get the state to actually give the district the funding the year that you're having these students report, so we can actually do something instead of after the fact. So in that report, I think you might find interesting, I've written that committee. I'm going to testify at that committee. Gusto's going with me to start really, wrangling them and having them step up and really help the districts that have the population that are not being serviced. And we're certainly one of them. So that's in there for you to look at. AIS, that application has closed, correct?
Yes, I believe AIS the closed. West Side is still currently.
West Side, the second day of West Side, we had 1,100 applicants. Which to the board, I think, yeah, it's kind of nice, but the other two schools offer a good program. And, we know, and we know what's going on in some of that, there's a perception. The curriculum is the core curriculum, but the project-based work, the exploration work, that's why in the budget we need to do what we can to maintain those exploration goals. Because that was our commitment to parents, that we would do something at those schools, I'll use the word make them special. And those youngsters at the middle school, really 4 years ago, we removed all of those industrial technology, all of that from them. And anything about middle school, they need exploring. So they'll be in the budget. They will be there to those youngsters that don't get them. We'll have 200 students get into West Side. There'll be 100 in STEM. There'll be 100 on the other side next year, right? So all those other kids, they're not shoplifting. They're important to us, and the programs are good in the district. But I think the exploration would just help us, send a better message out. So that's what we're working on. Frank, Dr. LeBlanc is working on a program that's going to incorporate Rogers Park kids and Broadview kids for some of the events that we have going on, starting tying things together. Teachers are going over and visiting, counselors are going over. So we're trying to integrate the work at that school into our other school. So I'm really excited about that. And, application process has been terrific. Trips out of the country. Just so you know, Quebec, Canada, we have a group going. We have 41 students. To Ireland, 410-19. These are all that you approved. We have 12 students going to date. Italy on 410-19, we have 22 students going. And the trip to Paris has been canceled. It hasn't been an interest. That was the one you had asked me about, right? There was only one student and a parent. So it turned out it's been canceled. So
Nobody's rushing to get
nobody's
to Paris
right.
these days.
So that's. Did I forget anything, John?
So,
Why don't you just tell the board about the, what you have being delivered technology-wise?
because of the SBAC, Smarter Balance,
Thank you.
Smarter Balance Assessment Consortium, aka online tests that are coming in March, through the work actually with the city, we are purchasing 19 Chromebook cards for the elementary schools. And as the board sees in front of me today, that's a Chromebook before you, and they cost about $300 each. So through the use of this new technology, we have a pilot up at the Magnet School in 5th grade only. Really phenomenal success there. So we are one Chromebook. Schools like we are considering if let's say if we didn't build the testing schedule correctly, one building might test 5th grade, let's say in March, and the testing window is about 16 weeks, right, Jody? 16 weeks? And we had another 5th grade that may test late, the school scores could be skewed because then essentially you have 16 weeks of instruction that happens from point A to point B. So because of the advancement in technology now, we've got the ability to test all those kids together. So I think long-term, the Chromebooks are a really great resource for the elementary schools because it provides a lot more stuff in front of kids, which is cool. Very neat.
And they need them because they have them at home already, so it'd be nice if we got.
Yeah, and the pilot worked phenomenal at AIS, so that was really great with 5th grade and we moved forward with it. We've already done it at the middle schools and the high schools, so that it's not very new. And the elementary release is only going to reinforce that. So all good in technology.
So,
Yes.
on the AIS, is there still a decline in the enrollment from the outer districts?
Yes.
Or is it-
Yes, Newtown informed us they would, I think there are 10 students down.
Correct.
They have 10 seats they will not be taken.
Can I ask why?
Well, their enrollment's going down.
Oh.
Enrollment.
Right. You know, it's kind of a catch-22 for them. And, you know, this whole idea, at least when I talked to them, the idea of our academy was really to help diversification. That was the goal. That's why it was put together. We have a great program. It's a Connecticut elementary school here. But a lot of it was to be living with, working with, going to school with someone other than those that live in the town a little different. And I think, you know, those that have been able to step forward and do that, that's been terrific. But Newtown is losing kids, remarkably so. You know, New Milford closing the school. You know, the only thing that's going to help us, I think, is that 4 years ago now, the state has permitted parents to in essence, if they want to attend the magnet school, even if their district doesn't participate, they're permitted to go. The state will reimburse us. And we do get kids that are here from Southbury, we have kids from Hartford, their parents live in town, they apply and get in. I'm hoping that picks up a little bit to kind of, you know, so that we can have not only diversity, but help us with the income, which is part of that.
If we don't fill it, the Danbury students utilize the excess
To an
capacity?
extent, we keep a 70-30 balance. Actually, it's 60-40 to be safe.
Yeah.
But, you know, technically, if 70% of students of the enrolled seats have to be Danbury. If you go up to 75, you lose your funding. For us, that's quite a bit of money.
The actually good thing here is if you, section 1, page 14 of the budget is the magnet revenue and the current projection. So if anyone wants to check, that's where we currently sit with that.
We were worried about that.
And occupied from the other districts.
They'd have to move to get in.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Because, I mean, our revenue is what, 800,000?
No, 2.1 million.
Well, who's counting, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Million here and million
Okay,
there.
so you're looking at that, we can't afford to lose
Yeah,
that.
and if we go past the 70-30, you're not a magnet anymore.
Yeah.
I once thought about using some of their, you know, because we needed, they had some negative way.
True.
Yeah. Because that, it's the building.
We look at that. It increased the students. But on with down.
Compound.
Personally, school. I'm still worried about, and you guys are doing a yeoman's job in bringing everybody, making it equitable for everybody. Thank you very much. That's my personal thing. Now, the other part of me is to ask you all to try to attend, those of you that can, the breakfast in Newtown on the 13th, the gay legislative breakfast. It's important for us to be here. It would be nice if we had a show of force and talk to people with a lot of money and the way in state budget is manipulated. And it would be nice if these guys were on our sides. We're the poorest and the biggest in this area. So, and this is exclusively our area legislators. All right, that was one point. There's a policy meeting before the next meeting. People should attend. This is affecting different policies that we haven't had before.
Can I update for a second? The policy on the uses policy.
Right.
We had another attorney look at it, so
Right.
making, okay, you know that.
We know
making
that.
some other, look,
Well,
I know.
well, they're making, yeah, they have to make some
Right,
recommendations.
so that's, we have some benefit on
Okay. I also would like to tell everybody, I didn't bring my tablet so I can actually read the proclamation. This is National Parent Month, and I would like to be able to sign the proclamation. What I will do is I will send it out to all of you tonight so you can read it, and you can just let me know if it's okay with all of you. It's
First time I've heard of it.
right, because I had never heard of it before, but I got a notification, and with the proclamation was to sign. The bottom line is it's resolved with the Danbury Board of Education at this meeting that we would have discussed it. We can't because I can't read my thing. Whereas the National Parent Leadership Month recognizes, honors, and celebrates parents for their leadership roles in their homes, schools, and communities, and in local, state, and national arenas. It's just recognizing parents for working with their families and their kids, and giving them some ownership to it. Already, that's all it is. But what I will do is I will email this all to you tonight when I get home, so you'll be able to. And you just let me know, then I'll come in and sign the proclamation with Candy. That's so they can send it out. Alrighty. I don't know, it just has to sign it, so. I do it. All right, that's all I have to say, except to thank everybody for stepping up to the plate to join all these committees. And is there anybody besides Richard that has a report? Richard Pinelli? You don't have a report?
Just that we're looking to come up with a date for the Community Relations Committee. And the Finance Committee met last week. And present and to
All right, thank you. Anybody else have anything to say? No?
I do.
Oh, nice shot.
Not shocked. Good news, we got a call, I think the architect rendition of the high school drafts. Looks like we'll be looking at some drawings soon. And then I'll be contacting the facilities group.
I was going to say the 2020.
The 2020 group? Yeah, the 2020 group, we're excited about that. So I think
that's
next
great.
week we have an initial conversation over, and then we'll look at it with the high school administration, and we'll see where we're going.
We should hold facilities committee meeting probably in the next few weeks, so yes.
Remember, the goal here was to put forward this proposal.
In South Street, coming this summer, so.
Things happen this year, it's amazing, just amazing. We'll get through this budget season, we'll be okay. Other than that, do I hear, there's nothing else to discuss? What? Yes, Kathy? So moved. We know you have to make the motion, we have to actually make the motion. Somebody make the motion, please.
made by Mr. Ferguson.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Molinaro. Okay. Ready? Go home.